Okay, when it came to games that I was really anticipating from 2013, Dead Space 3 was definitely on that list. I had such high expectations for this game, but does it live up to those expectations? Let's find out. There have been a lot of changes made with Dead Space 3, some big and some small. You play a character named Isaac Clarke who is going up against a swarm of necromorphs, and you're looking for Ellie Langford, who has gone missing. The story, while a little tougher to follow, is pretty good overall. The changes in time and place in the beginning might leave a few people confused, but once the main story gets going, then you should be able to catch up okay. I do like the story overall. While there are moments where it will leave you a little bit confused, they managed to keep true to the Dead Space style while not rehashing the same thing, which so many franchises are guilty of doing. The game is a lot more action-based than the first two games were, which is kind of a double-edged sword. On one end, it's nice that it keeps you on your toes with the action, but on the other end, it does seem to take away from the puzzle element of the game. The franchise has been well known for its perfect blend of the action and puzzle gameplay elements, where in Dead Space 3, the action sort of outweighs it, which I don't really like. The puzzles also seem to be a little watered down this time in favor of the action. They aren't the most difficult in the world, and because of this, Visceral tries to make up for it by throwing more enemies at you. In fact, the most difficult puzzle I found to be the very first one, which was assembling the train. That damn train took me forever to get through, mainly because I play on a small 26-inch TV, so the instructions turn out to be very small on the screen too. So I spent a good half hour trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. The puzzles also sometimes come off a little too easy. For instance, when you're trying to get the engines going on the ship, it actually has these large arrows pointing down, so you know exactly what you're supposed to do. It kind of takes away the challenge. Now, don't get me wrong on what I said before. The action is fun in the game. It's just the fact that increasing it doesn't fit in with the gameplay that Visceral has developed in the first two games. However, when not comparing to the first two games, it comes off as okay. It can get very repetitive at times, but it's definitely not the worst that I've seen from this generation of gaming. However, I think it's safe to say that the boss battles are probably the most forgettable in the franchise. I felt more challenged when getting attacked by the regular enemies during the puzzle than when facing the actual bosses in the game. One element that I like about the game is the ability to explore a little more. Visceral does give you a lot more free range in the levels and lets you enjoy yourself and find artifacts or health when you're done shooting down enemies, and I thought that was pretty cool. I also like the workbench that you can use to build and add on to weapons. The controls are still very good. I think Dead Space has a very good control scheme overall. Granted, 360 owners might be a little disappointed with the telekinesis controls, which involves hitting LT, B, and then controlling with the right analog stick. It's a bit of a clunky setup for that one, but I've gotten used to it. If I had to point out an ongoing flaw with the franchise, it's how your character navigates. This is an ongoing problem. The game's perspective doesn't really give me the feeling that my character is doing much movement when he's walking, and when I'm running, I don't feel like I'm running. I feel like I'm power walking with the character. I keep getting stuck on things I can't see at first, and sometimes simply navigating the character onto a ramp or a ladder can be challenging. The aiming system is a bit loose, but it's not the worst thing in the world. When you go to aim, sometimes when you think you should be aiming right at your enemy because you're looking straight at him, the gun will turn out to be way off. Again, it's not the worst thing, and it doesn't take long to adjust in the game. Graphically, the game looks beautiful. Visceral did a great job on the look of the game. The environments are well detailed, and the sound in the game is some of the best I've heard in video games, period. The game also runs smoothly, which speaks a lot to how well Visceral polishes their games. There's no frame rate issues, and the loading times, while a bit timely in areas, are short, so the game moves at a very good pace overall. So overall, on its own, it's a decent game. However, when comparing it to the first two games, it does feel like a step backwards. A lot of the charm that made Dead Space 1 and 2 so prominent in the video game world doesn't seem to be there in the same light with Dead Space 3. Well, everyone, that's it for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.